Welcome to the webinar, Connecting Supply Chain and Finance Around Inventory Optimization with Deloitte. I would like to introduce both of our presenters for today. Tony Truella is the National Lead Partner for the Deloitte Anaplan Alliance in Australia. Tony is a finance systems professional specializing in performance management and end-to-end implementation and support of management and financial reporting systems. He has spent the last 20 years designing, implementing, and supporting a range of financial consolidation, reporting, and planning systems. Jason Makins is Senior Manager and Master Anaplanner at Deloitte and will be performing today's Inventory Optimization app demo. I will now turn it over to Tony to kick off the webinar. Tony, go ahead.
Thanks, Tricia. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. As Tricia mentioned, I have a background in technology, and I'm currently the Deloitte Anaplan Alliance lead in Australia. Having just returned from the Anaplan Hub event in San Francisco, where I met a number of you face to face, I'm feeling really excited about the direction that Anaplan is going in with regards to connected planning. Supply chain is a very connected process, and we've seen a number of examples of how the connection of this process leads to much better outcomes for our clients. So this session is a repeat of the session that Jason presented at the Hub at one of the breakout events. If you can move to the next slide, please, Jason. So we're going to cover a very quick case study as a way of introducing the inventory process, and we're going to cover some of the basics with regard to supply chain, and then we're going to move over to looking at the inventory optimization app that we have built and we have deployed at a number of our clients here in Australia. And then there'll be time for a Q&A session that we can open up to later. Thanks, Jason. So supply chain is becoming more and more complicated. There are factors that are influencing the business. Things like businesses moving at a faster and faster pace, and that's based along the expectations of customers. We're getting into a time when people are expecting same-day delivery, and everything needs to be in stock. So this is putting a lot of pressure on businesses and organizations to really look at their supply chain and to ensure that things are optimized. The other component is the cost of logistics and the cost of holding items. The competition is really tight, and there are disrupting factors like the Amazon supply chain, where the use of robotics and drones is creating really tight competition in the marketplace. There's also a big focus on risk and the impact on the organization's balance sheets with regards to the amount of stock that has been held and the way the stock has been rotated. So in a perfect world, supply will match demand, but in reality, this does not happen, and that introduces the need to hold inventory. The need to hold inventory is not only to meet demand, but it's also to keep operations running. When you, in particular, are doing manufacture, you can't stop-start processes based upon the fluctuations in demand, and this leads to the need to store stock and inventory. So the supply chain is a connected process with each link in the chain impacting the other, and we're going to discuss one component of this, which is the inventory management and optimization portion of the supply chain. Thanks, Jason. So we're going to cover a case study, which is the Fletcher case study. As many of you will know, Fletcher is one of the largest listed companies in New Zealand, with a global footprint in about 40 countries. Fletcher has a very complicated supply chain, which is compounded by the need to manufacture as well as procure. If any of you are in a building or if you're on a road, Fletcher probably has something to do with it. So it's a very complicated business supply chain distribution compounded by manufacture and a global footprint. just to mention that this challenge is not unique to Fletcher. We have solved for this problem with a number of our clients. We'll be using this as an example. Over to you, Jason.
Thanks, Tony. So using the Fletcher building as an example, we're trying to call out some of probably the common challenges that we found there, as well as the common challenges we found at some of our clients subsequently. If we're looking at how we manage those challenges, the key outputs we're really looking for is an early focus on inventory benefits, freeing up that working capital, evolving focus, as we've called it, so you're proactively managing the impact to EBIT, so clearing out those slow-moving or obsolete items and prioritizing your high margin, low volatility items. And of course, a long-term focus, so getting all of that to run optimally and wrapping a strong supply chain process that's enabled by a platform like Anaplan around all of this. So some of these key challenges that we're seeing, which is preventing our clients from getting there, is lack of inventory KPIs. So just difficult to measure where there are challenges. Where's the heat in the inventory portion of the supply chain? Not segmenting inventory by margin and volatility. So there's still a gut feel type approach on what the best items to keep in the right location at the right time are, and just bringing a lot more science into that, especially when you start talking about critical items that people have flagged as being essential in a number of locations, and just being able to bring some science and some data into that conversation on whether or not that is actually the case. Inventory management teams operating in isolation. So Tony touched on the connected aspect of supply chain management, and inventory is really this pivoting point in between supply and demand, and you got to have your inventory team, or sometimes just inventory guy in a small organization, who's able to sit in the middle of that and bring the right amount of data and the right amount of science, so he can have conversations with generally big portions of an organization like the demand and supply planners. And finally, a significant volume of data. So if anyone on the call's looking at number of SKUs being in the tens or hundreds of thousands, or if you've got a national or international footprint, making sure you get the right SKUs in the right location has become increasingly more complex with large volumes of data, and then being able to pivot that, analyze it, pull some levers all in real time and see the outputs is really the part where people are struggling. So moving to looking at the picture on the right, the 4 key areas that we focus on is the cost to serve. So again, across product, channel, material, and service. Planning framework and the way you roll it out. So, what does your end-to-end S&OP process look like, and how does inventory fit into all of that? And that's really about, as I mentioned, balancing the demand and supply side. Reviewing your slow-moving and obsolete stock. So this is a way to find, upfront quick wins, areas where you can free up a lot of stock, and then proactively managing your slow stock, making decisions over time on whether or not to keep it, and then connecting all of these pieces together in a supply chain excellence team or center of excellence within your business, where you can have people upskilled, you have the right processes in place so you can have the right conversations. And those are the 4 key pillars that we're looking at when we're addressing this issue. So moving on to why Anaplan. We're looking at some of the levers and the enablers. So, why do you need a platform like Anaplan, or how can a platform like Anaplan help addressing this issue? So looking first at the levers, you've got key levers of SKU rationalization. So being able to take a look at your business, realize you have 100,000 SKUs, and being able to say, well, actually, only probably 10 to 15% of those are real money makers, and the rest is a very long tail that goes all the way all the way out. And the other key factor around optimizing that is your cycle stock and safety stock settings. So this is where you want to introduce a process supported by Anaplan where you can set the right safety stock and cycle stock in each location, and you can track that for a period of time. Generally, we suggest you don't look at moving any of that safety or cycle stock numbers for at least 3 months to avoid any sort of bullwhip effect where inventory starts going up and down, and you start proactively managing your inventory towards those levels. Around some of the enablers, so the app that we've built really allows you to get a good view into your business. So business strategy alignment. What are the kind of products or the product lines that are aligned to our company's strategy that we're prioritizing, new ones maybe that we're launching, and being able to segment products. So have some science and some data around why different products are performing well or not, and bringing those into your conversations. And lastly, around your supply chain capabilities. So our Anaplan app and the Anaplan whole S&OP process altogether really supports uplifting your supply chain capability. So it means you get that real-time data, you get that transparency, you bring a platform like Anaplan and you get all your technology in the cloud. We've set that up with automated refreshes from your source system, so you can get basically a way to track day by day or month by month how you're performing. And then policies and people, so really getting your people working collaboratively in a whole end-to-end supply chain process, and Anaplan really helps you do that. Obviously, it's really easy. It looks great. It's really easy to use, and with a drill down capability that this provides in a very complex or very large data set, it just makes it a lot easier for your people to have the right conversations. So moving towards the demo that I'm going to show you today, this is I'd say, conceptual overview of how it all hangs together. So we've got inputs, a bunch of the calculation engine, and then a series of key outputs that we take out of the model. So if you're asking, what data do I need or what data goes in, really it's a list of all of your products, your SKUs, and a roll-up that you use to group them. The same for your locations. So it could be branches that roll up into states or provinces, into countries, and then your demand. So we load in weekly demand by SKU, by location, and as well as monthly inventory closing balance. And those two together are really the two main inputs of data that goes into the model, and all the calculations wrap around it. We then have a few other assumptions that go in, or if you've got the numbers calculated, we find different clients have different ability to calculate these things, like supplier lead time. You might classify your suppliers if you don't have that, and apply some assumptions on what the average lead time is to get something from a supplier. And then you've got a few other assumptions, like what's the cycle time of my products, what are the service levels, so what percentage of orders do I want to be able to complete immediately from customers. And all of that goes into the calculation, a few modules in Anaplan into the calculation engine, and we do the segmentation of all SKUs by location and a target stock setting. And then we've got a few key outputs. So we've got some calculation summaries. You'll see that on the first page I'll show you. And then a series of just charts and graphs, which just make it really easy to either export these out and put them into packs that you can present, or present directly in Anaplan. And we found our clients using both of those options. And finally, just exporting. So this is all a big data intensive exercise. So exporting big amounts of SKUs by location, what the target stock settings are, as well as a huge range of attributes, being able to export that into a flat file and load a lot of that into a production system if you're doing manufacturing, or into your procurement ordering system, allows us to set min maxes using the data that comes out of Anaplan. So I'm going to move over now into the demo. I'll just make sure I haven't been logged out from some inactivity. No, we're still good. So as I'm going through the demo this morning, I'll start high level. I'll give you guys a bit of an overview of what you're looking at, and then I'll take us into a few specific dashboards where you can see some of the key outputs. So what we're looking at here is what a lot of our clients really love, and it's kind of the final answer. You know, the day zero, when we load the first hierarchies in, we load the first data in, this is a place where we start to say, let's just take a look at a high level snapshot of what we're seeing around setting target stock levels and segmenting your products. So across here on this key table, we've got a product hierarchy, number of levels. It's our Deloitte app. So it's a construction company that sells refrigeration equipment, got parts and installation, which you know, as you know, if you're selling refrigerants compared to selling spare parts, those are two very different product lines. The second one is another hierarchy, which is locations. And in this case, some of the key drivers and way of managing the business was looking at branches compared to DCs. And we've got all of those loaded in here. And you might treat DCs or branches differently. And then finally, some versions. So mostly what we find is we've got 2 or 3 versions. Mostly what we find is setting target stocks upfront, or the first time round, if we're giving a new capability in Anaplan, is they're based off actuals. So you're looking at historical demand, what happened in the last 12 months or 18 months. Only some of our clients have the ability to have a trusted demand plan where we can actually set target stock levels based on what the S&OP upstream process is telling us. And I think that's definitely a goal where everyone's aiming to get to. It just takes a bit of time and a bit of maturity in the S&OP process to be able to get there. So if I tell you a bit about what we're looking at the whole business right now, being at the top of these 2 hierarchies. And I talked about SKU segmentation. So this is where we separate each SKU by location into A, B, C, and D. A being your highest margin contributors, C being your lowest, and D being we don't contribute at all. So this is a data set that is, I'd say, probably indicative of what we often see. So if I scroll to the bottom here, we're looking at a baseline inventory value. So currently we're holding about $84 million of inventory. And if I look at my D SKUs, we've actually got $32 million of inventory that hasn't moved in the last year. And the timeline horizon that we look at is configurable. It's down the bottom here. So we've got a weekly 52-week period that we're looking at. But seeing this 32 million here, it feels like a big number, feels like a big percentage. We're almost up at 25–30%, but it is not an uncommon situation in the first cut when we take a look at the data. And straight away, you can start seeing where benefits, this is the low-hanging fruit. You know, let's take a look at all these SKUs in these locations. And I think probably the exciting parts about some of these, or the contentious part in some cases, is that some of these product lines are amazing performers in another location. And because of that, they have the general feel across the business that they perform well everywhere. And in a case like this, this gives you the ability to say, actually, no, this product line doesn't perform over here. Let's either fire sell it off from there, or let's transfer it over to a part of a region or a country that is selling it, and clear some of that working capital from there. And some of the drill down here means you can drill down all the way to transaction, and this is this lowest level of detail, and you can filter by SKU or by different product lines. And very quickly you can, within a few days or a few weeks, you can start sending this data out to different people across the business. They feel comfortable in Excel, they can start pivoting and start making some decisions with it. So that's talking about some of the low-hanging fruit. The XYZ across the top here is the volatility. So you can see that actually of the, excuse me, you can see of the 172,000 unique SKUs in locations. So we optimize that in the calculation engine. 612 are AXs. So these are your highest contributing, lowest volatility. And you can see some drivers here. So you can see that's about 18% of my SKUs contributes to about 80% of my margin. And the rest is all a long tail of low margin contribution. And in the app, this is where people can start playing with some of those drivers, and you can very quickly increase or decrease some of these drivers, and you're doing huge calculations across the whole model. And I think this is a part where a lot of our clients love this kind of responsiveness of the tool. I'm crunching a very big data set and I'm getting outputs very quickly, and you can see the table on the left updating as I start pulling some of these drivers. The other key bit that I'd call out here, so we spoke about, this is segmentation I just covered. We spoke a bit about target stock setting. So it's critical to segment your products because you want to allocate the right customer service level to the right product groups. So if I'm looking at my AXs, they make me the most money, they're the least volatile. I want to set them, I want to fulfill all my customer orders. So setting those up at 99% is a good start. If I'm looking down at my CZs, 90% or maybe even lower is probably what I'm looking for. I don't make much money when I sell them, and I hardly ever sell them. So this is this big group of products here, this $5 million of stock across 51,000 SKU locations. And what we're looking at here is very quickly is we're actually saying we only want to hold about $300,000 of stock, yet we're currently holding 5.3 million. And this is where you're able to come in here, update some of your service levels, and very quickly see the tool calculate. So actually, if I only set that at 85%, well, you can see on my target inventory value, so that's my safety stock and cycle stock, is coming down quite easily. And it's this sort of analysis where you have a version and you're able to pull some of these levers and sensitize some of your inventory and some of your supply chain. That's incredibly powerful when you have this sort of capability in real time and in a way that you can easily interact with it. I'm going to move over quickly to a bit of a summary dashboard. So this one here, I'm going to expand it so it fills our screen. I'm going to turn off some of the noise. So I think, for me, this was the first few times I was working with my clients and taking them through this. This is just a line chart of units sold. So any units I'm selling externally to third parties, so outside of the business, and units shipped branch to branch. So these are all the internal shipments. And you can really see here just how much money and time is spent on moving units around the business. So there's a lot of logistics going on here. And you can see it's often towards here, the end of in 4-week cycle. So towards the end of a month, there's a big push on sales, which, yeah, that probably makes sense. Big push on sales. We want to clear some stock out before we close the books at the end of the month. But what it's also showing is, this is across all locations, just how volatile some of those sales are and why it's so hard to predict and set target stock levels. And in this case here, you can drill down all the way to the individual product in an individual location, or you can take a look at it at a whole of branch grouping. And branches, you can see here, have a very different profile to our distribution centers. And similarly, we have some clients who then again roll this up instead of branch and DC by area. So and you might have management layers who take care of different regions, and you're able to give them a really easy snapshot of what their region is looking like. So I'm going to navigate back away from that, just moving off from some of that volatility. And I'm going to show you some of the quick graphs and outputs that we're seeing that our clients really love using. So I'm going to move to this one here, target inventory against baseline. So what I'm looking at here is a bit of a snapshot of some of the key drivers into the model. So this is our horizon that we're analyzing. This is our baseline month. And this is our last close period. So this is set, baseline month is the month where you set your first target stock levels. This is the month where you're comparing all your benefits back against. So what was inventory back in Jan 16? And then as each month rolls by, you're moving the model 1 month ahead, and you're proactively comparing, okay, what's the closing balance this month compared to that baseline month? And as I move across here, we can see we're looking at our branches. That's context has followed me over. And I'm saying across all my branches, I'm actually only want to hold about $4 million of inventory, yet my baseline inventory value, so this is my value back at Jan 16, is actually 35 million. And there's a huge benefit. I'll probably call out now that you would never realize all of that benefit. You never get it quite perfect, and maybe you never want to run quite so lean, but a huge portion of that is completely achievable. And then just over here, so current month inventory against baseline. So you can actually see in this case, while our original benefit, we had sized at about 31 million across the business. When I compare that to how much inventory I'm holding right now, I've actually seen some improvements in the last few months after running a few months of initiatives to move stock to the right places or clear it out or make some decisions on product lines. And already we're seeing some benefits on moving this down. And the great part about this is that you can have the conversation with a product owner. So you could have someone who's in charge of HVAC equipment, and you can show them what this looks like very quickly in the context of their product line, or in the context of a different region or zone. And similarly, measuring absolute values in dollars is helpful to size the price. But when you're looking at supply chain and you're looking at inventory, you really want to look at number of days of inventory that you're keeping, and the model's doing both of those calculations for us. So in the same way that I just drilled down on HVAC equipment and we looked at the number of days, spare parts for installations will look very different. So right now our target is 23. We currently have 172, and maybe that's just the nature of spare parts. But you can see up here that actually there's quite a bit of dollar benefit behind all of that. So it lets you see some of these key KPIs that I mentioned earlier that you can measure very quickly and drill up or drill down on, so you can have the right kinds of conversations. I'm going to move over to probably one final dashboard just to give a bit more of a view into some of the key things that our clients are really like to use. So some key metrics, both by product or SKU as well as by location. So I'm actually going to use some Anaplan right click just to get rid of some of the low level details and just have a look at level ones. So some of those key KPIs, having the tables that you can start analyzing straight away and drilling down. So here by product group. So in the first dashboard, the segmentation dashboard, you're looking at that in a grid and drilling up and down. Here we've got a whole bunch of key KPIs: current inventory, baseline inventory, target inventory, what our benefit is, how much we're actually selling. So what's our cost of goods sold over this time. When this is where we can start looking at how many times we're turning inventory over, and then a few more benefit calcs. And why this is great is so much of this data at this level or down here at a location level lets us have the right conversations. And just using some out of the box features from Anaplan, I'll do a sort from highest to lowest on my benefit. I'm going to choose the top of the hierarchy so I can see it across all locations. And you can really start having great conversations right away. You can focus on the biggest prize. So we've got 2 locations up here. I could check if they're DCs or not. 2 locations up here where the biggest benefit is. So maybe we choose the top 5, and this is the way where we start setting up a bit of a roadmap of initiatives that we can complete by focusing on the right product lines and the right conversations and the right locations to have the right conversations across our different teams and our different parts of our supply chain. So I'm going to bring us back to the segmentation overview. And in starting to wrap up and open up the floor to a few any questions that have come in while I've been talking. Just a quick summary is, looking at the data we took in weekly sales, weekly demand, just in this case, just actuals. We took in closing balances of inventory by month. We take in a bunch of key outputs and assumptions like, how do I want to segment? How do I want to push up or pull down with some of my drivers? And we focus on product segmentation and target stock setting. And we get that in real time with the ability to drill down, export out, and pass this down to our downstream processes. Or similarly, we're able to view segmented items like this and say, actually, there's a lot of critical items. So when I'm looking upstream at my demand plan, I'll be able to talk to the demand planners, or maybe it's sales or marketing, and say, all these items that you've been telling me are critical for so long are actually not really selling very often. So just the segmentation overview at a glance just gives you so much power in the inventory space to be that pivoting point between supply and demand. And being able to have segmented products by margin as well as by volatility is a critical part of being able to do that. The final thing, which I'll emphasize as well, is having standing up the tool and the capability in Anaplan is a huge win right away. We have a pre-built app here which you guys are looking at. It's our Deloitte app. We customize it generally in some ways to align to some supply chain practices of our clients. But most importantly is we make sure we build this into a process that happens every month. So how is the data refreshed? What are the key dashboards or the key indicators I'm looking at and I'm measuring every month? And how am I closing some of those feedback loops? So it means setting up the right meetings with the right people across the business and having that run as on an ongoing basis really enables Anaplan to unlock so much value around your inventory optimization and really give so much power to your inventory team and inventory managers to have the right conversations.
I think I'll add to that, Jason. Connecting this through to marketing plans, sales plans, and manufacturing, as well as to incentive plans within workforce planning, creates a really powerful supply chain process for organizations end to end.
So I might check in with Trish. Have we got any questions while we've been presenting?
Yeah, thank you, Tony and Jason, and we'll now answer the questions submitted during today's webinar. As a reminder, you can still submit your questions through the questions pane in your attendee control panel. Okay, so the first question was, this is just one component. How does this connect the rest of the supply chain process?
So that's a...
Sorry, Jason, I was just going to say, yeah, that we've covered that, I think, in a number of different ways. Essentially, with Anaplan as a platform, this can be a series of models that connect across the whole supply chain process, all the way through from manufacturing through to sales, through to marketing. But essentially, within organizations, this could be a spot solution to start off with as well, where there's integration that needs to be brought forward from the different underlying systems and outputs going to the other parts of the process, from an export point of view and feeding into the other systems. But essentially, this sort of modeling needs to lead to action. It's not a reporting process. It's not a BI process. It's a performance management process. So it's essential that this does feed into other processes along the supply chain.
Great. Okay, and another question here, how does this scale for different sized businesses?
I can take that one. So how does this scale? What we found is when we're looking at really large businesses, and we've had at least one client subsequently since we first built this app, who had a couple of 100,000 SKUs across 200 locations. And if you're looking at how do we crunch that data in real time, well, there are some techniques we use to optimize that. So we make sure we only do calculations on valid intersections, but that's the technical side. What that means functionally is that we're able to utilize an app like the one you've looked at today to take a very large data set in. When we're looking at hierarchies or lists of more than 1 million members, so that's 1 million unique SKUs in different locations, and we're able to get the same sort of performance of the app that you saw today. So it's under a couple of seconds. And what we found is the Anaplan, or the platform, and building an app that is optimized means that you can scale this tool to a really large business and connect it into a very complex supply chain.
Okay. And then where will I be able to find this app?
So I'll take that one again. So where do we find the app? We're actually in the final stages of pushing this app up onto the Anaplan app hub. So you'll actually see that in the name of the app. So it will be available with documentation online shortly in the coming weeks. We're working through the final checks and balances to make sure it's standardized and clean, and we're going to upload it up there. So in short, it will be available soon through the app hub. Otherwise, through us directly as Deloitte, or through talking to our Rajiv Mitro, who's the Australia managing director and a close partner of ours.
Okay. And then I have another one here. How much time does it take to set something or implement something like this inventory optimization model in Anaplan?
So I'll take that to start off with, and then with the actual building of the model, Jason can take that on. But it's part of the larger process. From a organization change point of view, this would lead to a lot of change within the organization with regards to incentive planning, and it'll also expose a number of components that will need to be dealt with from a change management aspect. If you look at a manufacturing organization, a lot of organizations incentivize their workforce by the amount that is manufactured, the number of widgets that are made, and the quality of those widgets, as opposed to the number of widgets they don't make so they don't flood the supply chain. So there's building of the actual model itself is something that can be done in a shorter time frame, but you need to consider the impact that this has on an organization for it to be useful.
Yeah, and from from starting with the app and making it, well, filling it with contextual data, so the right data. Generally, we find it can be 2 to 6 weeks, and that really depends on the data structures, the quality of hierarchies that already exist in an organization. It depends on getting the right kind of flat files. So we have some standard input files, just rows and columns that we work towards to get the app stood up really quickly, and it usually needs a bit of help from somebody in your IT team to help us do some of those exports. So it's usually just a few weeks. Maybe we got to customize a bit of the functionality, but as a vanilla solution, if the data and hierarchies are there, working through some of the details of the data and the uploads can really be done in just a couple of weeks.
Okay, great. Here's another one. Is there a way to hold inventory at multiple levels of a product with this app?
Is there a way to hold inventory? I'd say right in the app right now, no, there isn't. We hold inventory at a SKU by location level, which is really detailed. But there's two parts of the model actually. There's a SKU by location part and just a SKU part. So and a location component. So it would require some updates, but I'd say it probably wouldn't be too much of a leap to lift that up a level and hold it there. What I would call out is you'd lose a bit of the value if you held it higher than SKU locations. You wouldn't be able. It'd be, I guess, more challenging to have targeted conversations in the right region or across the right product lines, but definitely doable.
Okay, well, that is all the time we have for questions. If we didn't get to your question, we will address it offline via email. And thank you again, Tony and Jason, and thank you everyone for attending today's webinar, Connecting Supply Chain and Finance Around Inventory Optimization. You will receive a follow-up email within 48 hours with a link to view a recording of today's webinar. So thank you again and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.